Oahu, territory of Hawaii. December 7, 1941. Private First Class Daniel Mercer stands on the damp grass outside his barracks at Schofield Barracks, lacing his boots with slow, lazy fingers. He is 22, a machinist's son from Ohio, now wearing olive drab wool trousers and a khaki shirt with the U.S. Army patch stitched tight on his shoulder. The morning air smells of salt and wet earth. It is supposed to be a quiet Sunday. Somewhere in the distance, aircraft engines hum. Daniel doesn't look up at first. Planes are common over Oahu. Army Air Corps pilots practice almost every morning. He tightens the lace, pulls it hard, and stands. The sun creeps over the WWII range, casting long shadows across neat rows of barracks. Then the hum becomes a roar. He squints toward the southern sky. Low-to-low dark shapes sweep over the trees. They are not the usual American P-40s. These aircraft are sleeker, painted in light gray. Red circles flash under their wings. A whistle cuts the air. The first explosion shakes the ground beneath his boots. A column of black smoke rises from Wheeler Field. The blast punches Daniel in the chest like a physical blow. Windows shatter along the barracks line. Men stumble out half-dressed, some laughing in confusion. What the hell was that? Someone shouts. The second wave comes screaming overhead. Daniel sees the fixed landing gear, the angular wings, Japanese A6M0s. He doesn't know the name yet, but he will. Machine gun fire rips across the parade ground. Dirt kicks up around him in sharp, violent bursts. A man beside him spins and collapses without a sound. Blood spreading dark through khaki fabric. Now the sirens begin. Air raid. This is no drill. Daniel's training snaps into place. He runs toward the armory, boots pounding against concrete, heart hammering against his ribs. Smoke thickens, heavy and oily. The air tastes metallic. Overhead, dive bombers peel off in steep, terrifying arcs. He watches one release its bomb. It tumbles, small and distant until it strikes the hangars at Wheeler Field. Fire erupts skyward. Aircraft burn wing to wing. Daniel reaches the armory door. It's locked. The corporal fumbles with keys, hands shaking. More explosions. The sky is no longer blue, it is black and red. Daniel looks south. Beyond the hills lies Pearl Harbor. A rolling thunder reaches them seconds later, deeper, heavier than anything striking Wheeler. Battleships. He feels it in his gut before he understands it. This is not an accident. This is not an exercise. America is at war. A formation of Japanese bombers cuts low across the horizon, heading straight toward the harbor again. Daniel grips the edge of the doorway, powerless, watching the sky burn. And somewhere beyond those hills, sailors are dying in steel coffins. The lock finally clicks open. The rifles are still wrapped in grease. Daniel tears at the wax paper with shaking hands, fingers slipping over cold steel. The M1903 Springfield feels heavier than it did in training. Real weight, real purpose. Outside, the sky roars again. Another blast rolls over Schofield Barracks, closer this time. The wooden frame of the armory shudders. Men curse, fumble for ammunition belts, drop cartridges that scatter across the floor like brass rain. Move, the corporal barks. Wheeler's getting hit hard. Daniel slings the rifle over his shoulder and runs. The road toward Wheeler Field is chaos, trucks colliding. Soldiers sprinting without helmets. Medics already dragging wounded men toward makeshift aid stations. The scent of aviation fuel burns his throat. Overhead, Zeros strafe the roads, stitching lines of dirt and blood across the ground. A P-40 sits on the tarmac ahead, engine dead, wings torn open like paper. Daniel sees a pilot half crawled from the cockpit, leather flight helmet still strapped tight. The man's eyes are open but unfocused. Daniel wants to stop. He doesn't. Dive bombers scream down in near vertical plunges. Their sirens mechanical, deliberate wail like something alive. Bombs slam into the runway. Concrete fractures. Hangars collapse in showers of splintered wood and twisted metal. Daniel drops behind a shallow drainage ditch as machine gun rounds rake the field. He presses his cheek into the dirt, heart pounding so hard it feels visible. Return fire? Someone yells. He lifts the Springfield, sights trembling. The sky is full of movement, gray wings flashing in the sun. He fires once. The recoil jolts through his shoulder. He works the bolt, fires again. The shots feel meaningless against the speed above. A Japanese bomber passes low, its belly exposed for a heartbeat. Daniel sees the red Hinomaru painted bright against pale metal. He squeezes the trigger. The round cracks skyward. He doesn't know if he hits anything. The bomber climbs, trailing nothing but smoke from the field it has destroyed. Then comes a deeper explosion farther south. Even from Wheeler, Daniel feels it through the ground. A concussion so violent it silences everything for half a second. Men stop firing. Heads turn toward Pearl Harbor. A black mushroom of smoke rises beyond the hills, towering and natural. The USS Arizona has just been torn open, though Daniel does not yet know her name. The shockwave reaches them seconds later, rattling windows miles away. One of the sergeants whispers, almost to himself, "Jesus, they hit the fleet." Daniel lowers his rifle slowly. The attack isn't just on airfields. It's surgical, coordinated, planned. A Zero banks sharply, coming straight toward the drainage ditch. Its nose flashes with gunfire. Daniel throws himself flat as bullets tear through earth inches from his face. When he lifts his head again, he sees something he will never forget. The American flag over Wheeler Field, still flying through smoke and fire. The second wave hits harder. Daniel scrambles from the ditch as another line of bombers sweeps in low over Wheeler Field. The air vibrates with engines and detonations. Every instinct tells him to stay down. But men are shouting for ammunition near the shattered hangars. He runs. Smoke burns his eyes. The wool of his uniform is soaked with sweat despite the morning chill. He moves past a row of wrecked P-40s. Their olive paint blistered and peeling. One aircraft's propeller still spins lazily, ticking as it slows. A young lieutenant crouches behind a sandbag wall, manning a .30 caliber Browning machine gun mounted on a tripod. His helmet sits crooked. Blood runs from a cut across his cheek. "Get me belts," the lieutenant shouts. Daniel drops beside him, hands trembling as he feeds a canvas belt of ammunition into the receiver. The machine gun chatters alive, brass casings spraying hot against Daniel's sleeve. The lieutenant tracks a dive bomber screaming toward the field. The Japanese plane releases its bomb. Daniel sees it falling dark, tumbling before the explosion punches the air from his lungs. The hangar behind them erupts in flame. The blast wave knocks both men flat. For a moment, there is only ringing silence. Daniel rolls onto his side. The lieutenant is still breathing. The machine gun lies twisted, useless. Overhead, the bombers pull away. The sky begins to thin. The attack is slowing. Daniel staggers to his feet, ears still buzzing. Fires rage across Wheeler. Ambulance trucks bounce over broken concrete. Medics kneel beside men who will never stand again. He looks south again. The smoke over Pearl Harbor is darker now, thicker. Columns rise like pillars holding up a ruined sky. Volunteers. A captain shouts, "We need men at the harbor, now." Daniel doesn't hesitate. Within minutes, he's crammed into the back of a flatbed truck with a dozen other soldiers. The engine roars as they speed down the road toward Pearl Harbor. The smell reaches them first, burning all. Scorched steel, something else underneath it. The harbor comes into view. Battleship Row is an inferno. The USS West Virginia lists heavily, flames crawling along her deck. The Oklahoma lies capsized, her hull exposed like a dead whale. And beyond them, a towering plume of black smoke marks where the Arizona has exploded. Daniel's throat tightens. Small boats dart through all slicked water, pulling sailors from the harbor. Some men are coated head to toe in black fuel. Others do not move at all. A petty officer on the dock shoves a helmet into Daniel's hands. "Help with the wounded, move." Daniel runs onto the pier. The wooden planks are slick with water and blood. A sailor, barely older than him, grips Daniel's sleeve. They're still inside. The sailor gasps, eyes wide with shock. Men are trapped below. Daniel looks at the burning hull of the West Virginia. He can hear it now, faint metallic pounding, from inside the ship. The cutting torches arrive too late for some. Daniel stands ankle-deep in oily water inside the tilted hull of the USS West Virginia. The deck is no longer a floor, it is a wall. Everything is sideways. Pipes hiss. Steam curls along the steel rims like breath in winter air. The metallic pounding grows weaker. A Navy chief petty officer braces himself against a bulkhead, shouting over the groan of the ship. There behind that compartment, move. Daniel grips the handle of a portable acetylene torch while a sailor sparks it alive. The flame hisses blue-white against the steel hatch. The heat is immediate, suffocating. Sweat runs into Daniel's eyes. Outside, secondary explosions rumble through the harbor. Ammunition cooks off in distant magazines. The attack may be over, but the ships are still fighting for their lives. The torch bites into metal. Inside the compartment, the pounding stops. Daniel freezes. "Keep cutting," the chief orders, voice cracking. The steel finally gives. The hatch swings open with a shriek. A rush of smoke and trapped heat spills out. Two sailors collapse forward into Daniel's arms. Uniforms blackened, faces gray with exhaustion. They cough violently, but they are alive. A third man does not move. Daniel lowers him gently to the deck that is no longer level. He stares at the man's face, young, barely older than he is. For a moment the chaos fades, replaced by a sharp, private understanding. War is not distant anymore. It is here. It smells like burning oil and flesh. Above them, boots thunder across steel. Someone shouts that another fire has broken out near the USS Tennessee. The harbor is still an inferno hours after the planes vanish north. Daniel steps back onto the dock as afternoon light fights through the smoke. The sky is streaked dark. Oil burns in patches across the water, sending up thick, choking fumes. Stretchers line the pier in long, uneven rows. A Navy nurse moves from man to man, sleeves rolled, hands steady. She pauses beside Daniel, her face smudged with soot. "They'll be back," she says quietly. Daniel looks up. Far out on the horizon, nothing moves. The Pacific seems calm, almost innocent, but he feels it now, the shift, the weight of something enormous settling over every man in uniform. A staff officer climbs onto a crate near the pier, shouting to the gathering soldiers and sailors. All personnel stand fast. We are on full alert. Enemy submarines possible. This is not over. Daniel tightens his grip on his Springfield rifle. Behind him, from deep inside another damaged hull, faint metallic knocking begins again, and this time, it's coming from the overturned Oklahoma. The hull of the USS Oklahoma looms above Daniel like a steel cliff. She is completely inverted, her massive belly exposed to the gray Hawaiian sky. The harbor water laps quietly against her riveted plates, stained black with oil. It is a terrible stillness after so much violence. But the knocking continues, faint, irregular, human. Daniel climbs onto the overturned hull with a group of sailors and shipyard workers. Their boots slip against all slick steel. Someone carries chalk, marking spots where the sound is strongest. "Quiet," a Navy lieutenant orders. They kneel, pressing ears to cold metal. There, 3 slow taps, then 2. Daniel presses his cheek against the steel. It's cold despite the tropical air. He closes his eyes. Tap, tap, tap. He feels it in his jawbone more than hears it. "They're alive," he whispers. A welder drags heavy equipment across the hull, metal clanging. Sparks fly as the torch ignites. The flame bites into the ship's skin, showering bright white sparks that vanish into oily water below. Inside, trapped sailors pound in response. The sound is weaker now. The cutting must be careful. Too fast, and oxygen could ignite fuel vapors trapped inside. Too slow, and the men suffocate. Daniel crouches beside the opening as the first hole is burned through. Hot smoke rushes out, thick and suffocating. A sailor lowers a flashlight inside. I see movement. Ropes are lowered. One by one, blackened figures are hauled up through the narrow opening. Their faces are hollow with exhaustion, eyes wide from hours in darkness. One sailor clings to Daniel's sleeve as he emerges. We thought nobody was coming," he rasps. Daniel grips his arm firmly. "We're here." But not everyone answers the knocking. At another marked section of hull, the tapping has stopped entirely. The welder cuts anyway. When the hull opens, there is only silence inside. The men on the hull say nothing. They don't need to. As dusk settles over Pearl Harbor, floodlights flicker on, casting long shadows across ruined ships. Smoke drifts low over the water. The harbor looks less like a naval base and more like a graveyard. Daniel stands at the edge of the pier, staring at the burning wreckage. A Navy officer approaches with a clipboard, voice steady but eyes distant. "Army units are being reassigned. Defensive positions across Oahu. We expect invasion." Invasion? The word lands heavy. Daniel checks his rifle again, fingers steady now. Far out in the darkening Pacific, beyond the smoke and beyond the horizon, the Japanese carrier fleet is already turning away. But Daniel doesn't know that. All he knows is this: the sun has set on December 7th, and America will wake up different. Night settles over Oahu like a heavy curtain, but no one sleeps. Daniel lies prone behind a hastily dug sandbag position, overlooking the southern coastline. The moon is thin, barely cutting through the drifting smoke that still hangs over Pearl Harbor. The scent of burned oil lingers in the wind, carried miles inland. Every shadow looks like a landing craft. Every wave sounds like engines. Rumors move faster than orders. Japanese troops already on the island. Paratroopers disguised as civilians. Saboteurs cutting communication lines. No one knows what's real. Daniel tightens his grip on his Springfield and peers through the darkness. Beside him, Corporal Hayes adjusts the bipod of a Browning automatic rifle. His jaw clenched tight. "They'll try to finish it," Hayes mutters. "You don't hit a fleet like that and just sail home." Daniel says nothing. Down the line, machine gun nests are spaced along the dunes. Barbed wire coils glint faintly under moonlight. Anti-aircraft guns sit silhouetted against the sky. Crews waiting for engines that do not come. Hours pass. At 2 a.m., flares suddenly burst over the water. Men freeze. Fingers hover on triggers. Movement offshore. Someone shouts. Daniel's heart slams against his ribs. He squints into the glow. Dark shapes drift across the surface. Boats. Haze whispers. A flare hisses out. The shapes dissolve into wreckage, floating debris carried by the tide. No invasion, just the harbor giving back its dead. The tension doesn't ease. Before dawn, a convoy of army trucks rattles behind their position. Daniel turns as a new group of prisoners is escorted under guard. German merchant sailors taken from ships seized in Honolulu harbor after the attack. Their uniforms are dark, unfamiliar in the Hawaiian night. One of the German women radio operators from an interned vessel meets Daniel's eyes as she passes. Her expression is not defiant. It is stunned. She whispers something in German to the guard. He shakes his head sharply and pushes her forward. Daniel watches them disappear into the darkness toward a temporary holding compound. Even the Germans hadn't expected this. The eastern sky begins to pale. At first light, Daniel sees the harbor clearly again. Smoke still rises from blackened hulls. The Arizona continues to burn. A chaplain moves quietly along the defensive line, offering water and brief prayers. When he reaches Daniel, he pauses. You from the mainland, son? Yes, sir. Your family will hear about this today. Daniel nods. Across the Pacific, radios are already carrying the news. By sunset, the entire country will know. As the sun breaks over Oahu, an army runner sprints down the line, breathless. Stand to. All units prepare for possible air contact. Daniel rises slowly, lifting his rifle. High above, faint against the brightening sky. Engines. December 8, 1941. The air feels different. Daniel stands at attention inside a crowded motor pool yard near Honolulu as a field radio crackles to life atop a supply crate. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, men still smelling of smoke, and all gather in tight silence. Static hisses. Then a familiar, steady voice carries across the Pacific. Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's words roll over the assembly. Calm but edged with steel. Daniel listens without blinking. Around him, men remove helmets. Some bow their heads. Others stare straight ahead, jaws locked tight. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked. Daniel's mind flashes to the Arizona's fireball, the knocking inside the Oklahoma, the German woman gripping barbed wire, saying she did not know. War does not ask who knew. It only moves forward. When the speech ends, there is no cheering, only a deep, collective breath. A captain steps forward immediately. Congress will declare war today. All units prepare for deployment orders. Deployment. The word spreads like electricity. Daniel's unit is reassigned again this time to reinforce coastal batteries and guard key infrastructure. But everyone understands the truth now. Hawaii is no longer the end of the line. It is the beginning. Later that afternoon, Daniel walks the edge of Pearl Harbor once more. Fires still burn within the shattered hull of the Arizona. All floats thick across the water, reflecting the gray sky like broken glass. Recovery crews continue their grim work. Divers prepare to enter blackened compartments. Chaplains move quietly between rows of temporary graves marked by simple wooden crosses. Daniel pauses near the shoreline. A small Navy launch passes slowly, carrying bodies draped in canvas. The boat's wake spreads gently across the slick surface. He grips his rifle tighter. Behind him, the internment camp stands under heavy guard. The German prisoners sit silent beneath the Hawaiian sun. The woman from before watches the harbor, her face unreadable now. She meets Daniel's eyes one last time. There is no anger in her expression, only understanding. Across the Pacific, Japan is advancing. Malaya, the Philippines, Guam. The war is widening by the hour. Daniel turns away from the water. He thinks of Ohio, of snow in winter, of his father's machine shop, of a life that already feels distant. A transport ship's horn sounds and the harbor long and low. Orders are coming. The smoke above Pearl Harbor drifts upward into a sky that no longer feels safe. Daniel adjusts his helmet and steps forward as his sergeant calls his name. America has entered its darkest hour, and Daniel Mercer is marching straight into it.